Ambassador Krelthos stood before the Council of Concordance, his chitinous plates dulled with shame. The holographic displays surrounding the chamber showed the same devastating images on repeat. Fleets reduced to debris, colonies abandoned, trade routes severed. The mighty Vaxian Empire, which had dominated 3 spiral arms of the galaxy for millennia, now existed only in fragments. "Explain yourself," hissed Matriarch Selene, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's dim light into angry prisms. "How did this happen?" Krelthos' mandibles clicked nervously. We broke the first rule." A collective gasp rippled through the assembled delegates. Species from 100 worlds, each representing civilizations that had survived by adhering to one simple universal guideline: never disturb the humans. "Impossible," rumbled the Crag representative, his rocky exterior cracking with disbelief. "The Vaxians were the ones who established that rule. After the Burning Colonies incident 12 centuries ago." Krelthos bowed his head. "I know. We had forgotten why. The humans had appeared in galactic society nearly 2,000 years ago, arriving in crude chemical rockets that barely achieved faster-than-light travel. The galaxy had laughed. These bipedal primates from a backwater yellow star seemed unremarkable in every way. They weren't the strongest, the smartest, or the longest-lived. They possessed no natural weapons, no telepathic abilities, no remarkable resistances. What they did possess was something the galaxy had never encountered: an absolute, terrifying refusal to accept defeat. The First War had been brief. The Vaxian Empire, then at its zenith, had decided to claim Earth as a penal colony. The humans, with their primitive kinetic weapons and fission drives, should have fallen within weeks. Instead, they fought with a ferocity that defied logic. They turned their own ships into weapons, ramming them into Vaxian dreadnoughts. They fought in the void without suits when their hulls were breached. They strapped explosives to their bodies and detonated them in boarding actions. The Vaxians had superior technology, but the humans had something else. They treated every battle as if the survival of their entire species depended on it. Because to them it did. When the Vaxian fleet finally retreated after losing 2/3 of its ships to an enemy that should have been crushed in days, High Command established the first rule. It wasn't a rule born of respect, it was a rule born of fear disguised as pragmatism. The humans were quarantined in their sector, given wide berth, and the galaxy moved on. Trade was permitted, cultural exchange was allowed, but military provocation was absolutely forbidden. For 12 centuries, peace reigned. Krelthos continued his testimony, his voice hollow. 3 cycles ago, our analysts determined that humanity had grown complacent. They had spread to only 40 systems in all that time, slow even by their standards. Their military had downsized significantly. Our intelligence suggested they had become soft, focused on arts and philosophy rather than warfare. He paused, his compound eyes darkening. "We thought the old stories were exaggerations. Myths to keep young civilizations in line." The matriarch's voice cut like glass. "And so you tested them?" "A single colony," Krelthos whispered. "New Harmony, a farming world with barely 2 million inhabitants on the edge of their space. We thought it would be a simple annexation, a show of force to renegotiate trade terms. We sent 3 battle groups. Overwhelming power for such a minor target." The holographic displays shifted, showing what happened next. The human response wasn't immediate. For 3 days, the Vaxian fleet occupied New Harmony's orbit, issuing demands. Then the humans arrived, not with a fleet but with a single ship. An old colony transport that had been retrofitted with weapons that shouldn't have existed. Technology that violated a dozen known principles of physics. The first Vaxian battle group was destroyed in 17 minutes. The second lasted 12. The third attempted to retreat and was hunted down 3 systems away. Total casualties, 15,000 Vaxian lives. Human losses, the crew of 1 ship who had known they weren't coming home. But that was just the beginning. Within a week, human fleets materialized across Vaxian space. Ships that moved faster than anything in the known galaxy. Weapons that tore through shields like they weren't there. But the truly terrifying part wasn't their technology. It was their strategy. They didn't aim for military targets alone. They systematically dismantled everything that made the Vaxian Empire function. Trade stations, communication relays, mining operations, research facilities. They didn't kill indiscriminately. Human Marines evacuated civilian populations before destroying infrastructure. But they were utterly thorough. The humans had spent 12 centuries not growing complacent, but preparing for the possibility that someone might disturb them again. They had developed weapons in secret, trained armies in silence, and waited with the patience of a species that had learned hard lessons about the cost of unpreparedness. They didn't want to conquer us, Krelthos said, his voice barely audible. They wanted to ensure we could never threaten them again. In 6 months, they reduced our empire to isolated systems with no way to coordinate, no way to rebuild our fleets, no way to project power beyond our own atmospheres. Then they stopped. Stopped? Someone asked. They sent one message. The rule still stands. Leave us alone and we'll leave you alone, but understand we will always be watching, and we will always be ready. The chamber fell silent. The message was clear. Humanity had demonstrated not just their capability but their restraint. They could have annihilated the Vaxians entirely, but chose instead to cripple them as a lesson to the galaxy. Matriarch Selene's voice was soft now, almost pitying. What happens to your people now? Krelthos looked at the ruins of his civilization displayed on the screens. We rebuild what we can. We survive, and we remember why the first rule exists. He turned to face the council directly. I came here not seeking aid but to warn you all. The humans are not myths. They are not has-beens. They are a species that views existence itself as something worth fighting for with every atom of their being. They sleep with one eye open, and they dream in contingencies. He straightened his carapace with whatever dignity remained. Never disturb the humans. Now you know what happens when you forget why. As Krelthos left the chamber, the delegates sat in uncomfortable silence, each reviewing their own policies toward human space, ensuring that diplomatic distance was maintained, that boundaries were respected. The first rule had been written in blood once. It had now been underlined with the ashes of an empire. The galaxy would not forget again.